Starting off at number 10, we have the Candyman. The Candyman was an urban legend based off the short story by Clive Barker, which eventually got turned into a movie. The urban legend states that if you look in the mirror and chant his name 5 times, then he will appear and give you candy. Kidding. I wish. But instead, he will appear and murder you. Now, in the movie The Candyman, they had him climbing out of a medicine cabinet, which altered the urban legend. In 1987, it would appear as if the Candyman was real. Ruth McCoy was a victim who passed away after 2 men climbed through her medicine cabinet and shot her. Now, these men were not the Candyman, but used the same method of killing that he would use. They broke through the connecting wall and entered Ruth's apartment through her cabinet. This is a very scary and tragic case. Moving on to number 9, we have the Hermit in the Woods. In North Pond, Maine, a hermit living in the woods was all the talk for 27 years. This urban legend started after people were mysteriously losing their food, clothing, tools, and toiletries. People said that this hermit would creep into your unoccupied home and steal items. Well, in 2013, it turns out that this legend was real. Christopher Knight was arrested and charged for robbery. Apparently, he committed more than 36 robberies per year and was living in the woods since around 1986. I mean, I have no clue how he got away with it for so long. Next, at number 8, we have the Leaping Lawyer of Bay Street. Now, this urban legend is about a lawyer who fell from his office building and plummeted to his death. Now, I remember hearing this story as a child since it originates in Toronto. What I didn't realize was that it was true. Apparently, in 1993, a man named Gary Hoy was trying to prove how strong the unbreakable glass in his office was. As a result, he ran towards the window and used his full weight to bang against it. Unfortunately, the entire window popped out and he fell 24 stories to the ground. Moving on to number 7, we have the Ghost of Malls. This next urban legend takes us to Switzerland. It is said that a mysterious figure who they call Le Lion, or the Ghost of Malls, stalks the Malls forest wearing only camouflage and a gas mask. Some people have claimed to see this figure, but it remained just an urban legend until 2013. In 2013, a photo surfaced of what appears to be Le Lion. Then, a few months later, his gas mask and coat were found in the forest. Alongside that was a note that basically suggested that he was wandering the forest wanting solitude, and even suggests that he may have taken his own life. To this day, no one knows why someone was lurking the forest dressed like that, or where they disappeared to. At number 6, we have the Alice killings. Now, this is based on Japan's most famous urban legend. Legend has it that someone was murdering random individuals and placing a single playing card by their bodies with the word Alice written in the victim's blood. This was said to happen between 1999 to 2005. Well, in 2003, this story came to life. Around that time, there was a serial killer in Spain that would leave playing cards alongside his victims. He was found guilty for the death of 6 people and 3 that were wounded. However, no need to worry, this killer was caught and is spending 142 years in jail. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Bunny Man. This legend dates back to Virginia in the 1970s. Basically, the legend states that there was a patient that escaped a mental asylum and would gut bunnies and hang them from a bridge's underpass. The same patient was then said to move on to new victims, being teenagers. Well, in October of 1970, people reported seeing this bunny man around town. One couple said that they saw him dressed in a white suit and bunny ears. They also claimed that he threw a hatchet at their car windshield and shattered it. The next sighting was from a security guard who saw this man with a hatchet hacking away at a porch railing. When confronted, he ran away. No one has been able to catch this man, and as creepy as he is, there's no evidence that he murdered anyone, thankfully. But also, what's up with the costume? Like, is he trying to embody the Easter Bunny? Or maybe he is the Easter Bunny, who's now going down a much darker path. Who knows? And of course, we have the boogeyman on this list, coming in at number 4. There are so many different legends of the boogeyman out there, but this one is about one named Cropsey. This tale originated in Staten Island, where kids believed that this boogeyman would live in the woods and would attack and disembowel children. Other versions say he was an axe murderer, but no matter what version you hear, they all say that he would hurt and attack children. Parents would reassure their kids that they had nothing to worry about, but they did. In 1987, Andre Rand was responsible for a bunch of child disappearances and deaths in the 1970s. It is said that the story of the boogeyman heavily influenced him, and he even lived in the woods part-time, being the real-life Cropsey. In our third spot, we have the organ stealers. Now, this is another well-known urban legend. This urban legend has lots of variations, but they all basically surround the same concept. A person is out traveling on a business trip, hooks up with a stranger who ends up drugging them. Then they end up in a tub of ice with stitches along the side of their body and with their kidneys missing. Now, we may feel safe since this is just an urban legend, right? Wrong. It has happened to numerous individuals whose organs are then sold illegally online. In 2008, it happened to a construction worker by the name of Mohammed Salem. He took on a construction job in New Delhi, but when he showed up on the job site, he was knocked out and his kidney was taken. Another victim was Shakil Ahmed, who was 28 years old when he also had his kidneys forcibly taken from him. This is terrifying. I would like my kidneys to remain intact. Thank you very much. Coming in at number 2, we have Slender Man. Of course Mr. Slendy had to make it on this list. He is an all-time favorite urban legend of mine. I've mentioned Slender Man on this channel before. Basically, he is a super tall, pale creature that appears to have no face. He preys on little children, getting them to do dark deeds for them, or kidnaps and then murders them. Now, Slender Man is just a legend created by Eric Knudsen. However, in 2014, 2 teen girls were charged for stabbing one of their classmates, claiming that Slender Man told them to. Now, the victim did survive, but the girls' plan was to walk to Slenderman's mansion after they finished the deed. They claim that his mansion is located in Wisconsin's Nicollet National Forest. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Black-Eyed Children. This legend is definitely one to keep you up at night. The legend surrounds children whose eyes are completely black that make an appearance at night. The kids can be anywhere from age 6 to 16 and target adults who are alone. These kids often ask for favors such as asking to get a ride home, asking for food, or to use the bathroom in their house. Now, there are too many stories about people encountering these children. In 1998, that was the first encounter with them. A man said that 2 black-eyed children tried to get a drive home from him. He said that the children said, "We can't get into your car until you do. Just let us in. We will be gone before you know it." No thanks. That's terrifying. More like, he will be gone before you know it. And then in 2008, a woman had a similar encounter. She was in a car waiting for her mom when the children were tapping on the glass asking for a ride. Now, it's easy for people to make up these stories for attention, but there is an actual video that shows a motorcyclist encountering a black-eyed girl. In the video, you can see the girl appear and then disappear in front of him when he stops his motorcycle. Then she appears again and he runs away terrified. Now, I will have this video linked below and tell me your thoughts on it. Starting off this countdown, we have the government is stealing children for experiments. So there was an urban legend going around that the government would steal bodies of deceased individuals to conduct experiments on. Typically, it was said that they would target young children. Turns out that this is true. So during the 1950s, the US government was using stillborn babies to conduct radiation tests on. They wanted to determine the effects that radiation would have on humans and how much we could withstand. They called this Project Sunshine. Turns out that the parents of these children were never told that these tests were being conducted on their child. Very sad and unethical. In our 9th spot, we have death by an elevator. For many years, there's been multiple urban legends surrounding elevators, saying that if you get caught between the doors, then you'll be chopped in half. I certainly believed this when I was a kid. Definitely a legend that will make you want to take the stairs. So, turns out that there is some truth to this legend. There have been multiple reports of people being injured or killed and dismembered by closing elevator doors. One instance was in 2015 when the elevator doors closed on a man's leg and crushed it completely, shortly after he passed away. Now, one of the more disturbing instances involves the man Hitoshi Christopher Nakado. Hitoshi boarded an elevator that was apparently out of service, however that sign got removed. As soon as he entered, the doors closed on him and he was pinned between the doors as the elevator started to rise. His head ended up being sliced in half while his left ear, lower lip, and jaw remained attached to his body. And unfortunately, a woman who was also in the elevator witnessed this horrifying event and had to remain in the elevator with the head for an hour hour before she was rescued. Coming in at number 8, we have the alligators in the sewers. So there are so many legends saying that the sewers in New York are crawling with alligators. In fact, there have been countless fake claims of people reporting that they saw an alligator crawl out of the sewers. This urban legend states that a New York couple brought back baby alligators while vacationing in Florida. You know, the typical souvenirs. Eventually, they flushed these gators down the toilet and they made a family of their own in the sewers under the city. Now, of course, this story is false. However, a woman by the name of Joyce Hackett indeed witnessed an alligator in New York and captured a picture. After a terrible storm in New York left all the storm drains and gutters flooded, an alligator was seen roaming the streets. It was about a 2-foot alligator that they assumed got flooded out of the sewers from the storm. Thankfully, it posed no harm to the citizens. Moving on to number 7, we have the hotel room corpse. Who doesn't love going on a nice vacation? It's time to escape work, distress, and relax. But maybe you should always inspect your hotel rooms before you decide to spend the night there. So around 1991, an urban legend arose that a couple vacationing in Las Vegas found a dead body under their hotel room bed. Turns out, this has really happened to multiple people across the world. All of these individuals started to notice a weird odor emerging from under their bed. When they inspected it, they found a dead body. In 1999, a couple was vacationing in Atlantic City when they discovered they were sleeping on a mattress that contained a body. In 2010, a couple in Memphis found the body of the missing person, Sony Millbrook, under their bed. They also found fabric softener sheets shoved in the ceiling tiles to try and hide the smell. Terrifying. I mean, it's already weird enough sleeping on a mattress that thousands of other people have slept on, but sleeping over a dead body, that's crazy. In our 6th spot, we have the wrongly pronounced dead. Anyone out there have a fear of being presumed dead and then buried alive? Well, it's happened before, multiple times actually, but I'm not going to talk about being buried alive. I did a video on that though if you want to go check it out. So this is the urban legend surrounding individuals who have been pronounced dead, only to end up waking up either during their autopsy or waking up in those drawers in a morgue. Pretty terrifying. Well, this has happened before. In 2007, a man by the name of Carlos Camillo woke up to a knife being dug into his skin during a post-mortem. Carlos was declared dead after a terrible car accident, only to wake up being cut open. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Halloween decorations. Now there are so many urban legends about people or attraction sites using real dead bodies as Halloween decorations. As a result, they blend in and look like seemingly regular scary Halloween props. Well, that's exactly what happened for this next case. An amusement park in Long Beach, California had a decoration of a man hanging in their funhouse. This went unnoticed for the longest time until December of 1976. During this time, a Universal Studios film crew was planning on filming the show The $6 Million Man. One of the crew members went to move this prop when its arm came off, exposing real human bone. That's when they discovered this prop was indeed a real man. Turns out it was a man named Elmer McCurdy who was shot and killed as a result of his criminal past. I mean, how many people went through that funhouse and saw or touched that man's body? I don't even want to know. In our 4th spot, we have the killer cop. So this urban legend is about a killer who disguised himself as a cop to trick a woman into letting him in her home. Similar to like the beginning of Home Alone when the robbers used this technique to like scout out the next house that they were gonna hit. But anyways, the officer warns her of a serial killer that's on the loose in the area. She eventually lets the police officer into her home where he stabs her and slits her throat. Well, turns out there is a real life serial killer that used this same tactic. The man's name was Kenneth Bianchi, who alongside his cousin would impersonate police officers to murder women. They would drive around LA with fake badges saying they were undercover cops. They would then trick girls and end up killing them. Now, Kenneth wasn't the only one to do this. Ted Bundy also attempted to pretend to be a cop to kill women. He would refer to himself as Officer Rosalind. In 1974, he tried this with a woman named Carol DeRanche. Bundy responded to a call that Carol's car was broken into. He asked her to accompany him to the station. When in the car, he attacked her and put handcuffs on her. Thankfully, she got away. At number 3, we have the slave master. Remember when chain letter emails were a thing? Like, forward this to 10 people or else you will die. Well, better forward it, don't want to take any chances. Well, back in the day, people received a different type of chain email. This one would warn them of a person by the name of slave master. The email said that if this person contacts you, never respond or you could be killed. Turns out this urban legend is completely true. So, slave master was a user by the name of John Robinson. Basically, he would contact women using this name and would claim he was a wealthy businessman looking for a submissive girl to spoil. He claimed he would take them on trips and give them a better life. As a result, he ended up murdering multiple women. He was caught when the police found bodies of these women in barrels on his farm and in his storage locker. Like, slave master is a pretty spooky name. I don't think I would fall for it. Coming in at number 2, we have Charlie No Face. So this urban legend has its roots in Pennsylvania. Basically, the story goes that if you are walking alone at night on a quiet street, then you will encounter Charlie No Face, a man with a disfigured face. He's also referred to as the Green Man or the Monster of Beaver County. Now, this one is actually quite sad. So, this man that they referred to as Charlie No Face was indeed a real person. His name was Raymond Robinson. When he was a child, he was badly injured by an electrical accident that caused his face to appear disfigured. As a result, he was fearful of going out during the day, so at night, that's when he would go for walks. He was completely harmless, but people made him out to be a monster. And in our number 1 spot, we have bugs in your brain. Okay, you guys are all gonna hate me for this next one, but yes, it is possible for bugs to get into your skull, and yes, it is possible for them to lay eggs in your ears. So I'm sure we've all heard the urban legend that bugs can crawl into your head and eat your brain. Well, let me enlighten you with some truth to this legend. So, a 42-year-old woman in India started to experience extreme pain around her nose and eyes. Turns out, a cockroach crawled its way up her nose and was just chilling in her skull close to her brain. Eventually, the doctors were able to remove the roach, who was still alive when it was taken out. If the roach died in her skull, then it could have caused a deadly infection and damaged her brain. Then we have another instance with another woman. So in 2013, a British woman started getting massive headaches and woke up one morning with liquid on her pillow. Turns out there was a family of maggots living in her ear after a screwworm fly laid an egg in there. They believed that if the bugs were in her ear for longer, then they could have ate into her brain. Starting off this countdown, we have "the dingo ate my baby." This was a popular phrase going around that was even featured in shows like Seinfeld. People would say this as a joke, but it was derived from the urban legend surrounding dingoes stealing babies from their families. As outrageous as it sounds, it's true. On August 17, 1980, a 9-week-old baby named Azaria Chamberlain was stolen by dingoes while her and her family were on a camping trip. Azaria's mom, Lindy Chamberlain, called the authorities to report this and exclaimed on the phone, "A dingo's got my baby." That's how the phrase was born. Now, dingoes are known to attack animals like sheep, but when people heard about them stealing babies, they laughed and dismissed the claims, making it an urban legend. However, the Chamberlain story doesn't stop there. The authorities found it hard to believe their story, and after finding traces of fetal hemoglobin in the car and clothes with her handprint on it, they thought the parents had killed their daughter and used the whole dingo story as a cover-up. As a result, Lindy was in jail for 3 years. She was finally released when they found Azaria's jacket near some dingo dens. And this isn't the only case of dingoes snatching children. In 2001, 2 dingoes attacked a 9-year-old boy named Clinton Gage. And in 1988, a dingo dragged a 13-month-old girl named Casey Rouse out of her tent. Luckily, her father rescued her. In our 9th spot, we have the Dog Boy. Legend has it that in Arkansas, in the town of Quitman, a dogman creature can be seen wandering the streets at night. Well, this whole dogman urban legend is actually based on a true story. So in 1954, a boy named Gerald Bettis was born. He would capture neighborhood pets or stray animals and conduct experiments on them or torture them. This is what led him to receive the name Dogman. But he was not only abusive to animals. It is said that he killed his father and kept his mother locked away in his house. He was finally arrested for his crimes, and in 1980 he passed away in prison. Although there is no conclusive evidence that his spirit roams the streets, we do know for a fact that Dogman was indeed real. Coming in at number 8, we have the Killer Clowns. So there are tons of scary urban legends surrounding clowns. From the urban legend about the babysitter who was creeped out by a clown statue that turned out to be a real killer, to people creating urban legends to go with Pennywise, saying clowns really do live in the sewers. There are just countless legends. Well, do you all remember back in 2016 when there were tons of reports of evil clowns roaming the streets and chasing people? If you don't remember, well, in August of 2016, clown sightings were reported in the US, Canada, Australia, and other places around the world. Some of these clowns would just leap out of bushes to scare children, whereas others would chase people holding weapons. Residents of Greenville, South Carolina reported that a clown was spotted in the woods trying to lure children into the woods. Some even reported clowns standing outside of their windows looking in. Yikes. But that's definitely a story we'll be telling our kids. Like, when we were alive, we had killer clowns roaming our streets. Creepy, but this urban legend came true. In our 7th spot, we have the underwater city. The lost city of Atlantis is a well-known urban legend surrounding a city that lays at the bottom of the sea somewhere. Turns out, there are actual places that have been entirely submerged underwater. In the 1940s, an entire town of Georgia was purposely flooded with water to build what is now known as Lake Lanier. Don't worry, the residents were evacuated first, but the entire community still remains completely submerged underwater. Honestly, it was kind of cool. I would love to go scuba diving there and explore it. So in a way, it is a version of Atlantis. Coming in at number 6, we have the balloon flyer. It's a bird. It's a plane. Nope, it's just your neighbor flying high in the sky with some balloons. I mean, people can't really fly by strapping themselves with balloons, right? It's just a big old urban legend that you can fly with helium balloons. Well, there's one man that managed to do this. And I'm not talking about the old man from the movie Up. In 1982, a man named Larry Walters strapped 45 weather balloons to a lawn chair. He then sat on the chair and it lifted him up thousands of feet into the air. He was in the air for 45 minutes before getting caught in power lines and then climbing down them. He was fined with $4,000, but his adventure gave him the name Larry the Lawn Chair Pilot. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with rats in the toilet. Opening the lid only to find a little rodent in your toilet can be quite terrifying. This has been an urban legend for a long time. People were convinced that there's just no way that a rat could possibly climb through your pipes and into your toilet. Turns out, it's quite possible. The first reported case was in Virginia in 1999 when a rat made its way into a woman's toilet and ended up biting her behind. Rats are small enough that they can enter sewers and scale their way up pipes and make their way into your toilet. In fact, it is said to be fairly common in Seattle. Public officials have even released a statement giving advice on what to do if this happens. Moving on at number 4, we have the electrifying shower. This is somewhat of an old wives' tale as well as an urban legend. It is said that you should never take a shower during a thunderstorm because you might get electrocuted. Yeah, right, you know, that doesn't sound plausible. Well, turns out it can happen. If you're touching something connected to plumbing, wiring, or other electrical conductors and your house is struck by lightning, then it can quite possibly electrocute you. That means if you're having a shower and lightning strikes, its current can travel through your pipes and water and can shock you. In fact, this happened to a man in Brisbane. In February of 2018, this man was taking a shower during a thunderstorm when he was electrocuted. He was later hospitalized but had no life-threatening injuries, only a sharp pain in his leg. Making our way down the list, number 3, we have the witch's curse. So this urban legend takes place in Bucksport, Maine, and surrounds the tombstone of a man named Colonel Jonathan Buck. Urban legend states that when Jonathan was alive, he sentenced a woman to death for supposedly practicing witchcraft. As a result, she was burned at the stake, but the only thing that survived was one of her legs. However, before the witch died, she put a curse on his final resting place to remind everyone of his dark past. If you visit Jonathan Buck's tombstone today, then you will notice a leg-shaped mark on his tombstone. It's very creepy looking. People have tried scrubbing it off, but the stain will always remain. See for yourself. I can see the stain, and it clearly looks like the shape of a leg. In our second spot, we have Polybius. This is an urban legend surrounding the arcade video game Polybius. It was believed that the game was released in 1981 in Portland, Oregon for a month, but it wasn't your typical game. It was thought that the game was designed by the government. Players of the game claimed that it would cause nausea, massive headaches, nightmares, and even seizures. They believed that it was a tool used by the government to do psychological experiments on kids. People also claimed that they would see government officials dressed in all black come into the arcade and collect data from the game. Now it turns out that there was never a game called Polybius, but some of the other information checks out. Got a little twisted. Let me explain. 3 children did become sick playing games in an arcade in Portland. Michael Lopez got a migraine, Brian Morrow tried to beat a world record and fell ill, and a teen named Jeff Daly died from a heart attack after trying to get a world record. Now, what about the Men in Black? Well, in the early 80s, FBI agents would often stake out the arcades and raid them after illegal drug and gambling would happen in them. The FBI were monitoring the arcades and were recording gamers' high scores and their initials to track them down. Then years later, these stories kind of just merged to form one big urban legend. And in our number 1 spot, we have the ghostly follower. Now, I'm sure as a child, a bunch of you have heard the superstition / urban legend about having to hold your breath while passing a graveyard. If you haven't heard of it, legend goes that if you don't hold your breath while passing a graveyard, then the spirit of someone who has recently died will haunt you and follow you home. It is said that they're jealous that you're breathing and they are no longer. Can't lie, I did this as a kid. It was a fun game to see how long I could hold my breath for, and I was also scared of getting possessed. Turns out this legend might be true. A mother shared a story saying that her son named Bryce would always hold his breath while passing a cemetery. She claims that it was becoming a really bad habit and she didn't want him carrying it with him when he got older. When she finally got him to stop, paranormal things started happening around her house that led her to believe that a ghost followed them home. She would hear eerie voices, doors would open and close by themselves, and she often felt a dark presence lurking in her son's room. Then one night, Bryce woke up crying, claiming that he felt someone choking him in his sleep. Eventually, they got their house cleansed, and they haven't been bothered since. But could it really be that a ghost latched onto Bryce because he didn't hold his breath? Who knows? Starting off this countdown, we have the babysitter. Honestly, I'm glad that I never had to babysit when I was younger. The job alone is definitely pretty scary. Just being alone in someone else's house at night watching over their kids. But I'm sure you've all heard of the famous urban legend about the babysitter who's just chilling in the living room while the kids are upstairs sleeping. That's when she receives a phone call asking if she has checked on the children. This happens repeatedly until she calls the police, who trace the call and found out that the killer is in the house and that the children were upstairs dead. Although this is not quite the same, something similar to this did indeed happen. In 2016, a 65-year-old nanny was out for a walk with a 20-month-old girl that she was looking after in a stroller. A man named Craig Mikowski came up to her and told her that she was pushing a dead baby. The woman was spooked and went home immediately. However, he followed her home and broke into the house. He kept demanding for her to hand over the dead baby. He then took the stroller and fled. Thankfully, the baby was no longer in the stroller. He was later arrested for child endangerment, burglary, and petty theft. Coming in our 9th spot, we have the discarded body. So for this next urban legend, there are multiple versions of it. But basically, it surrounds the idea of someone seeing a nice rolled up carpet on the street and brings it home to redecorate their house. Only when they unroll the carpet, they find that there was a body inside of it. Well, in 1984, this exact thing happened to 3 Columbia University students. They picked up a carpet off the streets of Manhattan only to find that a man's body had been rolled up in it. It also happened in 2013 in Georgia when a body was found in a rolled up gym mat. Making our way down the list to number 8, we have Catman. First, we have the Dogman urban legend, and now there's a Catman too. Like, what other animal mans are out there? So the Catman of Greenock was a legend that dates back to around the 1970s. Basically, the Catman is a small man-type creature with skin made black from coal, and then he also has glowing eyes. And he is said to lurk the streets. There are different origin stories for the Catman. Some say that he was a Russian sailor that got stranded in Scotland, and without money or family, he was forced to live on the streets. Eventually, his mental state declined, and he turned more into a beast-type creature. While no one knows his true backstory, the Catman is supposedly real. He is said to be harmless and has been seen numerous times near wooded areas. He is said to eat rats and mice and hangs out around with stray cats. He can't speak, but he responds with gestures. There's even a Facebook fan page dedicated to him. On this page, members post his sightings, pictures, and videos of the Catman. However, he hasn't been seen since 2017, so fans are concerned about him. Moving on at number 7, we have premature burials. There are tons of people out there that are terrified of being buried alive. Let me know in the comments below what your biggest fear is. Although it's unlikely to happen nowadays, there is an urban legend out there that will make you think otherwise. Unfortunately, being buried alive is possible, as it has happened a number of times. One case involves a woman named Alice Blunden. Back in 17th century England, Alice was presumed dead after drinking a large amount of poppy tea. Now, poppy tea is made from dried, unwashed seed pods that contain morphine and codeine. So basically, she was just heavily sedated for a long period of time. But Alice was presumed dead and she was quickly buried. She woke up a couple of days later, and children heard noises coming from around her grave. They found that Alice was indeed alive, however it took another day just to dig up her coffin. After Alice was finally unburied, she was alive, covered in bruises and blood from trying to escape. She then quickly passed out from the experience. And then, believe it or not, she was presumed dead and then buried again. Like, that's terrifying. The poor girl has terrible luck. Coming in our 6th spot, we have the power toilet. Okay, so I'm terrified of flying as it is. Like, turbulence is my worst nightmare. But what's also scary about airplanes is the urban legend surrounding the bathrooms. In 2002, it was said that a woman got sucked into an airplane's toilet after flushing. However, this was just a rumor and it never actually happened. But the legend continued to spread, saying that the high-pressure vacuum flush can suck someone in. Well, this real-life story might just be more terrifying than the urban legend. In 1986, a 70-year-old woman on a cruise ship got her intestines sucked out from the suction-powered flush of a toilet. Doctors claim that since the woman was bigger, she created a seal around the toilet, and then when she flushed, the toilet had enough power to completely take out her small intestines. Thankfully, she survived, but it's just scary knowing that that could happen. Like, I just want to do my business in peace, thank you very much. But also, shouldn't you stand up and then flush, you know, so you don't get a spray, like close the lid and I don't even want to think about it. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the pool drains. So when I was a kid, we would go to pools and I would always have a fear about being sucked into the pool drain. Well, I always thought that it was an irrational fear and, you know, just a legend, but sadly, it can happen and it can be deadly. It is said that a pool's drain is strong enough that with contact with human skin, it can create hundreds of pounds of pressure. In 2008, a girl named Abigail Taylor was severely injured after sitting on a pool drain. The suction ended up ripping out parts of her intestines. As a result, she needed a bowel, liver, and pancreas transplant. She sadly did not make it. It has also happened multiple other times to different children. Some have even drowned from being sucked and held at the bottom of the pool by the drains. Coming in at number 4, we have the escalators. I'm sure when you were younger, you've heard the legend that a loose shoelace can get trapped in an escalator and as a result, your shoe and foot can be dragged in. Well, there are tons of reports of this actually happening. Some accidents have been devastating. In 2001, a 7-year-old boy in California lost 3 toes after his lace got trapped in an escalator. In 2015, a 13-year-old boy lost his leg after it got caught in an escalator. When he hopped on the escalator, his lace got caught and it dragged him into the moving metal. As a result of his injuries, he needed to get his leg amputated. Now, I think I'm gonna think twice before I get on an escalator, or you know what, I'm just gonna take the stairs from now on. It's healthier anyway, so there. In our 3rd spot, we have the Frozen Woman. And I'm not talking about Elsa or Anna from Disney's Frozen here. Instead, I'm talking about the legend of the woman who completely froze to death and later was thawed out and came back to life. Believe it or not, this actually happened. In 1981, a 19-year-old woman named Jean Hillard was out driving when her car slid into a ditch. Hillard tried walking 2 miles for help. However, she fell unconscious and froze. She was found frozen stiff, her skin gray in color with her eyes wide open. It was said that her body was frozen for 6 hours in -22 degrees weather. Her body was so cold that needles would snap in half when trying to pierce through her skin. Eventually, she slowly thawed out and resumed consciousness and made a full recovery. Moving on to number 2, we have the Red Room. This is a famous Japanese urban legend. This legend started in the 1990s and is about a cursed pop-up that appears on a person's computer screen. It's an image of a door with a recorded voice that asks, "Do you like the Red Room?" This ad will continue to pop up even when you close it. Others say that the pop-up is a red background with black letters that say, "Do you like the Red Room?" Those who have seen the pop-up are later found dead, the walls of the room painted red with their own blood. Well, it's kinda true. In 2004, an 11-year-old murdered her classmate. It is said that this young girl was a fan of the Red Room and even had the link to the Red Room bookmarked on her computer. It is said that the Red Room somehow influenced her into committing the murder. And in our number 1 spot, we have the accidental cannibals. You heard me correctly. There have been times where people have accidentally eaten other people. So this legend dates back to World War II. During this time, many families were facing food shortages, so their relatives would send over care packages with tins of food. However, legend goes that one family received a care package with an unlabeled tin. It was filled with a powder inside, so they thought it was a spice or food supplement. They began ingesting this powder by sprinkling it on their meals. Turns out that the tin contained the cremated remains of a grandmother, and it was sent to the wrong address. So, there are 2 real-life stories that I want to mention here. One is the case of a woman featured on the show My Strange Addiction. This woman was addicted to eating her husband's ashes. In fact, she was eating it for 2 months and was said to have ingested 6 pounds of human ashes. The other story is a case of accidental cannibalism. A killer named Joe Metheny was found guilty of killing multiple individuals and then turning them into hamburgers, which were later sold to and eaten by his neighbors. Joe said that he would cut up the individuals and mix them with pork and beef and make patties with them. Then over the course of multiple weekends, he set up a barbecue stand and sold them to his neighbors. I lost my appetite. That's really disgusting and disturbing. Oof. Starting off this countdown, we have Death by a Wedgie. Shows depicting middle school made it seem like they were going to be filled with big bullies that will harass you for your lunch money and then give you massive wedgies. And for those of you that have gotten a wedgie, you know that it's quite unpleasant, but not something that could take your life, right? Well, wrong. Of course, there's the urban legend about the kid who died after being wedgied so badly that the underwear got caught in his intestine. Although this didn't happen, there's a case where a man did die after receiving a wedgie. Back in 2013 in Oklahoma, a 35-year-old man gave his stepdad a wedgie. That resulted in his death. During a fight, he pulled his stepdad's elastic underwear band over his head. It actually got wrapped around his neck and ended up strangling him to death. The son was then charged with first-degree manslaughter. That's a very unfortunate way to go. Moving on to number 9, we have death by farts. So we all know that tooting is a natural bodily function, but is it a deadly one too? There are several different urban legends surrounding this. You have the legend about the boyfriend who apparently passed away after holding in his toots while hanging out with his girlfriend. Then you have the legend about the man who passed away in his sleep after tooting a bunch. Apparently he slept in a poorly ventilated room and his gas ended up poisoning him. But these are both just fake stories. But the real story was featured in an episode of 1,000 Ways to Die. This show recreates supposed deaths, so they claim the story is real, but who knows. Anyway, apparently 2 friends were fooling around one day. One of the friends took a lighter and held it near the other friend's behind while the other dude passed gas. It ended up causing a big flame and set his friend on fire. His friend ended up passing away after being burned alive. Coming in at number 8, we have the Halloween decorations. So in one of my past urban legend videos, I talked about a real dead body that was hung in an amusement park's funhouse. Days went by and no one knew that this prop was indeed real. Well, there's another case just like this, except this time it involves Halloween decorations. So legend goes that one time a kid was out trick-or-treating. He saw a very realistic body prop on someone's lawn and started kicking it. Turns out that this person was real and had died. Well, this legend indeed came to life. On October 26, 2005, a 42-year-old woman hung herself off of a tree in her neighborhood. The body remained there for days as onlookers thought it was just a Halloween decoration or a Halloween prank. Eventually, police were called and they were horrified to discover that the decoration was real. In our 7th spot, we have the cell phones. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the signs near the gas stations that say, do not smoke, do not leave your engine running, and lastly, do not use your cell phone. Now, why can't we use our cell phone at a gas station? So it's said that if you use your cell phone around a gas station that it will cause the gas pump to explode. Now, people think that this is just an urban legend and that using their cell phones around one is just completely harmless. Well, think again. On May 17, 2004, a college student was fueling their car when he answered a call. Immediately, he was surrounded by flames. Thankfully, he only received minor burns, but his cell phone was completely destroyed. It's said that his cell phone ignited the gas fumes emitted from the pump, causing the incident. There you have it. Phones are deadly. And at number 6, we have Santa Claus. So there's an urban legend out there about a dad that dressed up as Santa Claus and decided to climb down the chimney in order to surprise his kids. However, he got stuck halfway through and ended up passing away. Scarily enough, this has happened. There are numerous cases about people dying from being stuck in chimneys. In 1986 in Florida, a burglar tried to enter a family's home via the chimney to try and rob the home. However, he got stuck halfway through. He tried screaming for help, but the neighbors just dismissed it. A couple of days later, the owners returned home and found their house smelling like rotten flesh from the robber's body decaying in the fireplace. Then in 2015 in California, another burglar tried to enter a home through the chimney. However, the owner of the house ended up lighting a fire and the robber died from the heat and smoke. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the laughing attack. So how about the urban legend that laughter kills? According to this legend, laughing too hard can cause your spleen and other organs in your body to just explode and kill you. Well, that might just be a legend, but there are multiple reported cases of people that have died from laughing too hard. In 1975, a man named Alex Mitchell was watching an episode of a show called The Goodies. He found one scene incredibly funny and he ended up laughing for about a half an hour straight before he ended up passing away. His wife was just happy that his last few moments were positive. Moving on to number 4, we have the invisible guest. So what would you do if you found out that you weren't actually living alone, but you had someone living in your attic? First off, I'd be mad that they weren't paying rent, and second, that'd be pretty scary. Well, this next urban legend is about a man who lives alone, but starts to notice objects around his house disappearing. He would also hear footsteps above him. When he searched his attic, he found that a man was living there. Well, this exact same thing happened to a man in Japan. He was living alone when he discovered that his food was mysteriously disappearing. He thought that he was a victim of several robberies. He then installed several security cameras and discovered that a homeless woman was living in his closet. Apparently, she had been living there for a full year before he noticed. Coming in at number 3, we have the popped out eyeballs. Have any of you tried to keep your eyes open when you sneeze? Some say that it's impossible. Others say that it can be harmful. Legend has it that if you keep your eyes open when you sneeze, the force of your sneeze will cause your eyeballs to pop right out of their socket. Although scientists say that this is impossible, it has happened to one man. A 44-year-old man called the EMS after he sneezed, claiming that one of his eyes had popped out. When the EMS arrived, the man's right eye was swollen and in pain. Turns out that the man had pre-existing health conditions and he had a bunch of trapped air and built up pressure behind his right eye. So when he sneezed, it caused his eye to protrude. In our second spot, we have the objects in the eye. Basically, this urban legend is about a woman who thinks she just sees floaters in her eye, but turns out she actually just had a bunch of contact lenses lost in her eye that were floating around. Well, this is not an urban legend. It is 100% a real story. Back in 2017, a 67-year-old woman was having trouble seeing, suffered from discomfort in her eyes, and would often see floaters in her eyes. Now, floaters in the eyes are normal. They're the grayish looking spots that some people might see, and they aren't dangerous. A lot of people experience them. But in this woman's case, they were not floaters. When she went in for cataract surgery, doctors found 27 contact lenses stuck in the eye of this woman. 17 of which were stuck together and formed this large mass. Then they found 10 more. Doctors claimed that this was possible because she had deep-set eyes, most of which were found lodged high up underneath her eyelid. Oh, it's gonna make my eyes water. Although they don't know how long these contacts were in her eyes for, she was using disposable lenses for about 35 years. So it could have been in her eye for years. And in our number 1 spot, we have the phone charger. I don't know about you, but I was always scared about this next urban legend. Back in the day when I had a BlackBerry, I was told to never use your phone while it was charging. It was said that if you receive a phone call when your phone is charging, it could cause your whole phone and wall socket to explode, or it could give you a deadly electric shock. And this has indeed happened before. In July of 2013, a woman in China named Ma Alan was using her iPhone 4 while it was charging. She answered her phone, and before she knew it, it administered a deadly electric shock that took her life. Turns out that she was using a third-party charger and not a proper Apple charger. Police say that the faulty charger was the result of the electrocution. The police then released a statement warning individuals not to make calls when their phone is charging. Okay, so I have definitely done that before, but I will no longer be doing it.